got our ASMR.
Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah. You have to be incredible just because everybody's skeptic going in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're already looking for it to be bad. So you have to be really good just to get to that fair starting point. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of marriage,
Yeah, he was married to that role.
you have to be really good because everybody's got low expectations going into it. So
No, I don't think the people going into it have low expectations. I think all the people around them have low expectations.
depends on the marriage. I immediately set the bar extremely low, so there was only up to go from there.
By just like being you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our first date ended up with Taco Bell. So I took a Mexican on our first date to Taco Bell. So I set the bar extremely low. So it can only go up from there, really. So oh God, I killed Mike with that one.
Oh, it's funny because you're white.
Right. That's the whole joke. The funniest part about that story is, like, for context. So for those of you that don't know, while I was away, I got married, had my wedding. And that's kind of a joke that always comes up, is that our first date was Taco Bell. But so for context, I had just gotten home from traveling to San Antonio for work. And I got home, and this was the first time we were going to meet in person. We'd been talking over the phone for a while, and that was the first time we were going to meet in person. And I hadn't eaten anything at all yet since I took the flight and all that stuff. I literally took the flight, got home, showered, and then went over to pick her up and to meet her, right? And so we hung out for a little while, and then I was like, oh, I asked her if she'd eaten or if she was hungry or anything, and she said no. I was like,
Were you hungry?
well, I am. Yeah. I was like, well, I am. What's around here? Because I had just moved to Phoenix a few months before that, and in her area especially, I'd never been in that area before. The ghetto. And and I was like, hey, what's around here? She's like, oh, there was Jack in the Box, a Subway, a McDonald's, and like a Taco Bell or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, yeah, nothing sounds that great, but we'll just do Taco Bell. I didn't even think about it. And I was like, yeah, like, we'll just do Taco Bell. That sounds fine, right? So in Taco Bell, she didn't get, I think she got a Baja Blast, like Freezy or whatever. And then I got
Mexican thing on the menu.
right. And then I got food and whatever. And no one, I didn't even think about it until somebody pointed it out a couple days later, talking about it. They're like, so on your first date, you took a Mexican to Taco Bell? And I was like, oh, I guess I did. How ironic. But yeah, so that's always the joke. That was our first date. And she still stayed with me. So,
She's a keeper.
there must have been something.
Have you seen that list that's been going around about places you can't take a girl on the first date? And it was like Cheesecake Factory was on that list and that kind of stuff.
I've seen the list of I don't think I've seen that specific list. I have seen the list. It's like a popular TikTok where this guy is basically making a list of all the things that give the girl the ick.
Oh.
Right? I don't know if you've seen this. And so every time he sees a new video where a girl says, it gives me the ick when a guy does this, he adds it to the list. But it's so funny because these girls will be like, oh yeah, it just gives me the ick when he's poor, or something along those lines, right? And so he'll write it down as like, okay, can't be poor. But you see this long, like, huge, ever-growing list of things of like, can't be sensitive, but can't be masculine, can't love their mom, like just all these crazy things of like videos he's seen, right? And it's so funny. I don't think I've seen the one of like, can't take a girl to these places on first.
Yeah, it's like Cheesecake Factory was like the big one on there, and because Cheesecake Factory is like your prom date, because you don't have a lot of money. So, but you want to do something fancy yet affordable. So it's like Cheesecake Factory, Olive Garden, or Red Lobster, right?
See, what I do like about Cheesecake Factory, though, is that there's no like, oh, what are you in the mood for? What are you in the mood for? Because their menu is so goddamn big that
it's a novel.
Yeah. You can just find anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
You want tacos, you want fish, you want steak, you want Chinese. I mean, they have everything. It's crazy.
I would like an order of ribs, fried chicken, and refried beans.
Yeah.
We have it.
Yeah, exactly. They have everything. And their cheesecake is actually pretty good as a dessert. So, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole list of restaurants that you're not supposed to take someone to that I definitely have taken.
Oh yeah, it's a ridiculous, and it wasn't just restaurants. It's like you can't take her to church, you can't invite her to your house, and some of them I can understand. It's like your first date. I probably would not invite the girl over to my house.
Mm-hmm.
One, she might be batshit crazy. I didn't get her to know where I live.
Yeah.
Two, I might be batshit crazy and she's afraid to come over, right?
Right.
So it's really insensitive.
Well, and I could understand why you're like not supposed to take them to Taco Bell or McDonald's or whatever.
But at the same time, the circumstances right for it, right?
Well, it wasn't planned, right? Our first date was was like, basically we were just taking a walk in her neighborhood at the park and like talking and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So like it wasn't really planned to go get food. It was just like, oh, hey, I want to keep hanging out, but I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. Do you want to eat? And if not, cool, then I'm just going to make whatever's around here quick decision.
So I've got a question, and we'll talk about weddings here in a second, but with the modern day and age, Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming up, are virtual dates going to start counting as dates? So your first date might be just on the screen?
So, Gabby and I call it our first like physical date. That's the first time we met in person, but we had talked for a month to a month and a half before then.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had like Minecraft dates before then. So we like hopped online, played, like hung out, played a game that we both liked, right? And so we called those like Minecraft dates and all of that stuff. So to answer your question, yes, I do think that is actually already a thing. Like people doing virtual dates. I do know, and I've heard lots of stories of people that meet online, and they meet online, but they are long distance. So they really date a majority of their time like virtually before they actually meet in person. Which is, it's very interesting. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think that's already.
I know I've like loaded up Netflix and had person on the other
That's what
side.
we
It's
did
like
too. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, play, and then you're watching at the same time. You're on speakerphone, so you can talk like the other person's there.
Yeah. So now with all the software, there's tons of software now, and actually Netflix has it integrated now, where you just do Netflix watch party.
Right.
You don't have to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what we did. Like we had dates like that where we watched shows, or like, it was kind of that whole like, she wasn't fully comfortable with meeting somebody in person for the first time that she didn't know, which is understandable. And so it was kind of one of those things where you're like, well, cool, we'll just warm up to it and have these virtual dates and talk and get to know each other a little before we actually meet in person. So yeah, I mean, we basically did do that, and we talked basically every night. I used to go to work and people were like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't go to bed. It's like, we literally talk all night, and then I would go to work and whenever. But yeah, so I mean, we had a lot of like virtual dates through the time that we were talking before we actually met in person.
So you recently got married, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, about, I guess technically a month ago now.
Okay.
11/10.
11/10. All right. You've just been gone for other things.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly.
So 11/10, you got married. How long had you guys been dating?
So just for context, so for 11/10 is when we had our wedding. We got married a little over a year ago officially. So we have been together for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sounds right.
tell me about the wedding, because I was just at a wedding over the weekend.
Yeah, similar age.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Another Gen Z. I think he's 26 and you're 25. So
About to be 26.
about to be so same thing, right? So I got to attend his wedding, and he's one of my wrestlers, and so they had
Is that a new kink or
no, independent wrestlers. You've seen them on WWE, all right. But they had their cake, and they had this other little side cake.
Okay.
That was a wrestling ring, and on the side of it said Wedding Mania instead of WrestleMania. So it was pretty fun. But I want to hear about your wedding so I can compare it to his to see if there's some sort of Gen Z way of doing things.
So I'll kind of just, I guess, a broad overview. So we had a wedding at a ranch, basically, and they had I guess a barn is the best way to describe it, but obviously on the inside it wasn't a barn with animals. But they had a barn, and that's really a typical theme in Texas. That's a very common, ranch with a barn and all that stuff, right? So it was a more rustic wedding. We did a Dia los Muertos theme, so a Day of the Dead theme for our wedding. So we had
Perfect.
Why is the day I died? Is that what you're trying to say?
Hey, you can't have funeral without first having fun.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so we did this Day of the Dead theme, and with that, Gabby wore a black wedding dress instead of a white one. We did my tux. So we have this we got it, I think, as a gift, or we picked it up or something like that at home that kind of inspired the whole thing, where it was a bride and groom, and they were skeleton people, Day of the Dead, and the tux he was wearing and the dress she was wearing is kind of what we based the wedding theme off on. So I got the exact same tux, and she got a very similar dress, and so her dress had flowers and colors and all that stuff with the black. We did a face painter that was doing the Day of the Dead theme, face paints and all of that stuff. We had flowers that were very that super colorful, what basically during that Day of the Dead, they spread flowers and things like that all over the place, do lots of candles, things like that. We had you had that guy there that was telling you to, hey, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell. Yeah, that's what that was in the background. If you heard that ding, that was the notification bell going off. Make sure to subscribe, comment, interrupting my story in the middle of it.
Exactly. Follow us on X.
Yeah, follow us on X,
Instagram,
TikTok, posting,
Spotify,
semi-regularly there, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. But yeah, so we had a face painter there. We did an ofrenda with people that were really important to us that had passed away. So we could do the whole they were there with us and all of that stuff. And then our music was very pop, rock, and Hispanic music, a lot of mix of that. We did a similar thing where we did a cake, but then we did we had did we do cupcakes? No, I don't remember. Maybe it was just the cake. I don't remember. I didn't actually get any cake, unfortunately. I had a piece, and then
what happened to the cake cutting ceremony?
Yeah, well, we did the cake cutting. We both took a bite, walked away, and the next thing I know, there was no more cake, and I was oh well, all right.
So what's supposed to happen is you have a multi-layered cake.
Yeah,
and the cake topper is supposed to be saved.
Yeah,
you're supposed to eat that on the 1 year.
I tried very hard to convince Gabby to do that, and she was I'm not eating a fucking cake that's 1 year old. And I was but why? We'll freeze it. It'll be fun. She's so we didn't save the cake topper. And we took our piece, but then I don't know, we ended up getting distracted doing something else, something that we decided to do. I think it was the face painting. I think we moved into that, and we just got distracted after that, and was like, and then we ended up coming back around at the end of the night and was like, we never really ate any cake. But anyways,
did you get your face painted?
I did.
Were you a tiger?
I had like funny enough, I had like a spider theme on my face. I saw it as like as a choice, and I was like, oh, I mean, I have to do the spider, right? I mean, that only makes sense.
Was it like at your ear?
Yeah, it was like a spider and like a web and I don't know, all kinds of stuff. And then a couple of the guys let Gabby and I choose what they got on their face, and there was all kinds of very girly face paints that they ended up with. One of our friends ended up with like a giant unicorn or whatever on their face. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then, just a lot of dancing after that. We did like it was like a colorful baton almost send off where we had these like light up like sticks or whatever. And so everybody kind of made like an arc, and we ran through that as far as like the send off for the end of the wedding.
Instead of stuff. Chucking rice or
chucking rice or something like that. Throwing birds, whatever people
Did you do the garter and the bouquet toss?
Yeah.
It's like, none of you are getting married.
Yeah, neither of us cared to do anything like that. We played the shoe game or whatever, where you stand back to back. You have one of each person's shoes, and then the DJ asks questions like, who is more likely to, say they're sorry after a fight. And so you hold up the person's shoe that you think is like more likely or something along those lines, right? So you compare the answers.
It's the guy.
Yeah, so like we can't see each other's answers, but everybody can see ours. So, yeah, just stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. I would say at first there was some complications that I was like, was this really worth it? But after we had the ceremony, I was like, I'm glad we ended up doing this.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. And I had a lot of fun throughout, from the ceremony to all the way through. I had a lot of fun. And I definitely think it was worth it. It was fun.
So when's the honeymoon? Next year?
Yeah, sometimes next year. I haven't quite figured that out yet. Some stuff up in the air with like job stuff right now. So we're just trying to kind of filter that first.
Where you're going to be working.
Yeah,
and then make sure you're situated.
Exactly. We didn't want to, so obviously they don't always have to be, but weddings can be expensive, and then a honeymoon on top of that can be expensive. And then if you have to move or change places unexpectedly for work, that could also incur some costs. So we're just kind of like, there's a lot of things up in the air, so we'll plan to do something, next summer or something like that.
So how much did you dance?
I danced more than I expected to.
So like 3 times?
Yeah, probably 3 or 4. We did like our, first dance. I danced with my mom. She danced with, obviously traditionally it's dad, but she danced with her mom. And then we did the whole like open dance thing. I did all the line dances, and then there were some other things going on where we were all dancing. There's a couple of videos of me somewhere floating around of me working on Gabby. So that was fun. I'm sure she enjoyed that.
I remember something about you dancing around a sombrero or something.
Yep, I had a sombrero on it at one point. It was part of the decor that the decorations people had put out, and I saw it and I was like, well, I have to put that on, right? So I put it on. Gabby and I did our last dance of the night with me wearing that, and then there was a lot of me getting down with that sombrero on. So yeah,
you were twerking with the sombrero.
Yeah, there's quite a few pictures. I'll put a picture up in the video so that those watching can see. But yeah, twerking with the sombrero on, all that good stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Actually, you guys have already seen it in theory. The last episode, the thumbnail is me with that sombrero on.
Oh, okay.
Dancing with it. But I'll put it up in this video too.
Right.
Yeah.
You still have that clip you could insert in there for people to watch?
I don't know if I have a video of it. I would have to ask somebody to see if they do. I'll try and put it in.
All right. All you viewers, demand in the comments, demand to see
Demand
the video. Demand it.
Yeah, I'll try to find it.
Threatening him with bodily harm. You can message me. I'll give you his address.
So how was your wedding? Similar? Not similar at all?
somewhat similar.
Sorry, not your wedding. Your wedding that you
The wedding I went to. So my friend Luca Daniels, that's his wrestling name, not his real name. He got married, and it was actually in a rustic setting. It was by a pond, and so there was like a couple of buildings at the top of this hill that were used for like housing horses and that kind of stuff, stables type of thing. Mm-hmm. Then you go down this towards the pond, and there's a couple other buildings, and that's where the wedding was and the reception and that type of thing. So pouring down rain. Mm-hmm. And originally when you pull up, you can see all the chairs out in the grass in the rain. I was driving in, I was looking at that, I was like, this isn't a good sign. But there's an indoor section, I guess, for just in case these situations happen. So everything was done indoors instead of outdoors. But it was still nice and rustic. The ceremony itself is pretty short, and I think that's what everybody really likes, is the short ceremony, more time for the reception.
I didn't talk about it, but that's a pretty common movement now. Mm-hmm. Less than 30 minutes is usually what I'm seeing being pushed. And I mean, honestly, I think that makes more sense. Like, mm-hmm. The bulk of the money is not from the ceremony, it's into the reception. And so it makes more sense to enjoy the reception as much as possible. Yep. Mine was maybe 20 minutes long, if that. It was very short. So
they had food on, like, right on the outside in the covered area, but outside, mm-hmm. you got your plate, then you came back in, you sat down. So they had this ceremony, then everybody had to leave that area because they need to convert that room to the dining set.
Right, because originally it was supposed to be.
Yeah. So, but they had a barista out there also. Okay. So, lattes and coffee and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so they did a coffee. That's cool.
Yeah. Because it was at 2:00.
Oh, okay, that's
right. Yeah. Well, I think it was at 3:00. Everybody had to be there by 2, and then, you have the ties with the really guidelines, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make sure everything's set up and working and that type of thing. So, and then they had the vows, and there's a lot of wrestlers there, mm-hmm. that I knew and what they knew more. Mm-hmm. One of my good friends, Brino, who's also a wrestler, was in the wedding party. Mm-hmm. So we ended up hanging out, but they did the first dance, bridegroom dance type of thing. And that was all that the groom wanted to dance. And, watching him dance, I completely understood why that was.
So I'm not a big dancer either, but it was kind of one of those things, at least in my perspective, from my perspective, I was like, well, I paid for this, right? So, like, whether I look stupid or not, I'm going to dance. Like, I'm going to go out there. Yeah. Once I had a few drinks, I was like, yeah, I mean, why not?
Well, I agree with my friend. I don't like dancing. It's not my thing.
Oh, I don't either. Trust me.
And like you said, you paid for it, right? But if you dance and get on video, you pay for it for the rest of your life.
Hey,
but
we got to have content at some point.
You would think a guy that is physically gifted, he's an athlete and that type of thing, flies across the ring, jumps off the top rope, stuff like that, would be a little bit looser on the dancing thing.
Well, he's ultimately a performer too, right?
Yeah. And I was watching him, I was like, you can bend your knees. you can move it. You don't have to like penguin this whole thing.
That's funny.
But it was the dynamic. She is so outgoing and just fun, and she likes dancing, and I got to watch dance with all the girls during that, after the formal dances are done, right, and it's just opened up. She was just having a great time, and he was like out talking with guys by the parking lot far enough away that she wouldn't be able to fight him and try to coerce him into dancing.
That's funny.
but is more of a traditional style, but it sounds very similar to yours.
Yeah.
In many cases. I mean, they didn't do a Day of the Dead theme, but if you're familiar with wrestling, after the ceremony and just before people were getting the food, they brought the people back in, introduced the bridesmaids and the groomsmen and that kind of stuff, and then bring in, for the first time, Mr. and Mrs. Luca Daniels. And so they come in last, and then she hit him with a move called the Stone Cold Stunner, right? Mm-hmm. And he flops back and that type of thing, and then she hits him and then gets on top of him, and then Brito comes down there, counts in 1, 2, 3.
That's funny.
So I got that on video.
Yeah, that's good.
It's on Facebook right now. So
okay,
that was one of the fun things. And this other guy, Curtis Coleman, who was a groomsman, came in, and he's bringing the 2 bridesmaids with him, and he gets there and he's like rips his shirt off and he had the black tank top underneath it.
So it had some like wrestling themed aspects.
Yeah.
To it. Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So the themes are different, but it's still theme to theme. Mm-hmm. Young people, and honestly, I don't think that's any different than from other generations.
Yeah.
It's nice to see traditions carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty similar. I don't think I haven't really been to a whole lot of weddings, but for the most part, the ones that I have been to all had some sort of a theme. They all kind of followed the let's do a short ceremony and then get into the reception and enjoy the reception. They do the first dances and
so we did like sparklers, for them to run underneath and that kind of thing. For the send off, it wasn't really a send off. They ran through it, but then they just kind of went back to the.
We did something very similar. It was like let's run through it, but then like we kind of went back and
let's still hang out with our friends, and family, right?
Yeah.
So.
One thing that we did do is, so where we had the wedding at, it was about an hour outside of where we actually lived and where everybody was staying. So for our wedding party and for us, we did rent a party bus to take us there and back.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that we didn't have to worry about, drinking and driving and all of that fun stuff. To have an open bar and not to enjoy it because you have to worry about driving after the fact would have sucked.
Yeah.
So we did that, which was a lot of fun on the way there. On the way back, everybody was so tired that we literally all sat in silence and basically like slept out. It was pretty funny to see like 15 people just all like passed out or laying there. The driver asked us like, "Oh, you want to bump some music?" We're like, "No, shut the fuck up. We're all going to bed if we're tired." So that was pretty funny. But yeah, that was definitely the right move because at the end of the night, I was like, I'm so glad I don't have to drive back and worry about it.
Yeah. So Luca and Katie were waiting till marriage to consummate the relationship. And so I know Luca was like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
Finally. Yeah.
But, from what I've heard is that it's actually quite common not to have sex on your wedding night because you're so tired from the ceremony and the reception. And if you have that open bar, you've drank too much that you get to your hotel room and all you want to do is sleep and the sex doesn't happen till the next morning.
Yeah. So just to put it out there, like we didn't, right? Well, first of all, like I gave context at the beginning, we were already married. So it's kind of, it wasn't as big of a and we didn't wait, obviously. So it wasn't as big of a thing for one. Two, there was a good portion of Gabby's family that was staying at our house. So it was kind of one of those things where it was like, well, I think we'll wait until everybody's gone. And it was like, it was the same thing for us. Like, we got back and we were like, okay, I'm taking a shower and going to bed. There was definitely no, and we had to get up the next morning because we actually had a bunch of people over for lunch and we cooked some food and like all that stuff. So it was kind of one of those things where like, no, we're just exhausted. We'll just go to bed. Wait till everybody's
gone
out of the way. Yeah, gone. And even then, we were like, we're exhausted. We'll get to it.
We've done this before.
Yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how common that is. I'm sure it's less common with like the people, with all the ones that like wait until the day of. But yeah, I mean, with the wedding, the whole week before and during, you're kind of constantly going. So I could see that being the consensus of like, I just want to sleep. Like, we'll deal with this tomorrow.
So the wedding was on a Saturday.
Okay.
He worked a wrestling show on Friday night, got married on Saturday, worked another wrestling show on Sunday, and then got on the cruise for their honeymoon on Monday.
Right.
They come back on Friday, and he's already looking for a place in Orlando because that's where they're sailing out of and back into, to try and get on a show in Orlando on Friday when they get back.
Yeah, so he's probably like, we'll get to this when we're on the cruise. Yeah, that's crazy.
So he loves it though.
Good.
He at one point in time had talked about, we're having an afternoon wedding and we can get this thing done. I can be at a venue by 8 p.m. and we were like, no.
It's a bad idea. Yeah, that's good. It's good to have something like that you're so passionate about that you like, that you want to make things happen even right before other events and after other events and things like that. I think that's a good thing to have.
Yep.
A lot of people do not have that passion about something in their life that's outside of like a person or whatever. Like a lot of people just don't have that for a hobby
and they just meander through.
Yeah.
They seem lost and listless, and they're like, they're saying there's got to be something more. The thing is that something more takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And some people, there's an energy you have to have, but before you have that energy, you got to have that little something to get you started.
Yep.
Even on things that you like, it's, once you get started, you're like, I don't know why I didn't do this earlier.
Yeah.
And then the next day rolls around and it's just hard to get started, and then you do it. It's like, yeah, I should have just done this.
Yeah.
It's a good time. It's just getting it.
Yeah.
Getting to it.
Starting.
Be tough. And there's still work. And I think in everything that you do, there's portions that you don't like to do. And you got to love the other stuff enough to put up with the stuff you don't like. But there's always going to be the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that what some people get trapped into with like and this is where...
Yeah, we're outside the wedding. Yeah.
But I think where some people get mixed up too is like, they feel like whatever they're passionate about or getting into, if they don't do something for it, that means it's like gonna fall apart, right? So like, for example, right, when we first started this, I felt a lot of pressure to make sure that for sure something was released every week, right? No matter what. But then as we've done this for a little longer, it's kind of like, well, that's the point of like the fun in the hobby, is that we can just do it. And if like something happens and we miss a week, it's okay. We miss a week and then just
we had to quell some riots and that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just think, like, I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves even in their hobbies, when in reality, like, you can still have fun in your hobby and just enjoy it, or your passion or whatever it is.
Sorry, I forgot there was butt china on the other side, so it's like trying to remind myself.
So speaking of this whole setup, we've decided on a name.
We've got a name for the cock.
His name is Randy.
Randy the Rooster, or Randy Rooster.
Yep. Double R. R squared.
There were multiple,
I'm
not going to say hundreds, but there were multiple suggestions, and we've descended upon Randy.
Yep. So we got to Randy.
So
Randy the cock.
Look up Randy in your Urban Dictionary.
Yep. Yeah, we might have missed the mark with Richard, but that's okay.
Richard, it's long for dick.
Yep. So Randy the cock, our mascot for this show. So, yep, we decided on that.
If you don't like it, put in the comments, We won't care. We're not going to change it. But feel free to put in the comments.
Yeah, feel free to put it in the comments. You can post anything you want. Doesn't mean we'll listen to you.
Yep. So I have a thing about passion.
Okay.
Just to tie it back up, then we can close up because I know we're hitting that mark, right?
Yeah.
But passion burns hot and fast and burns out, right? So people say, I'm passionate about it. It's like, it's great. But you've got to find a way, and this is where the work comes in. You've got to find a way of transforming it from passion to love, to dedication, to resilience. And that's whether that's a career, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a hobby.
Yeah.
You still have to do, it's still work, and you still have to, and it all applies, you know?
But I think, so, you know, in my opinion, if you are passionate about something and you do love something, like even though the things that you don't like about the work, whatever it is, suck, it's still, after you're done with the work or whatever it is that you did, you still feel really great about it. You still really love it. And I think that's like, I don't know, a key part of that is that you're not done with the work and you're like, this was pointless. I hated this. I hated all of it. You know, I don't like the result. Why am I here? You're like, oh yeah, this was great. Like, I really enjoyed this. I really like doing this.
Yeah, it's getting through the crap that you don't like that really gives you the sense of accomplishment at the end. Yeah. So. Yep.
Yeah. That's our TED Talk.
We'll do that from time to time.
Wander off. Maybe we need to stop drinking before.
Or we need to drink more.
That's true. That might be the other option. Somebody was really excited they thought we were a drunk podcast, and I think they quickly realized that we're not a drunk podcast after that one episode.
Well, it's an idea.
You know what?
I am curious. So there was recently a drunk podcast, and we got a surge in views on that one.
Yeah, a large amount of views compared to our other videos.
So if any of you people that watched the drunk podcast are still watching, if that was your first one or second one, and you're still watching, I'm really curious as to what it was about the drunk podcast that you liked.
Yeah, and I am curious too, because, you know, YouTube kind of shows me how long they viewed, our click-through rate from thumbnail and things like that, and then, you know, our views. And I could kind of gather that it seemed to be something along like the title and thumbnail that brought people in. But there are a couple of people with the comments that we got that stayed and enjoyed it. But, you know, yeah, I want to know too, what did you enjoy about it? And is it something that we should keep doing or do again? Or is there just a specific aspect that you like that we need to start adding into our normal routine and show? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the drunk part. This is something you really liked about it.
And our next podcast is the Christmas episode, right?
I believe that's the one after that. What is this week? Yeah. Our next project.
So we'll have the Christmas episode,
Christmas.
and then we'll have the New Year's episode.
Yep.
All right. And then let's be into the new year.
And then we'll be in a new year, and you'll get to hear our New Year's resolution.
Our New Year's revolution.
Yep. Just a heads up, it's about the boomers. The way it started.
We're going to bring it back to the
full circle. The way it started. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys for watching. Follow us. Do all the things like Mike said earlier.
Yeah. Do what you're told.
Yep. Do what you're told. Thank you guys for watching.
Peace be the journey.